So that's the third gate, gatekeeper, and the fourth is called satsanga, or company of wise, holy and enlightened persons. Satsanga, the company of wise, holy, enlightened persons, is yet another gatekeeper to liberation. Satsanga enlarges one's intelligence, destroys one's ignorance and one's psychological distress. Whatever be the cost, however difficult it may be, whatever obstacles may stand in its way, satsanga should never be neglected. For satsanga as alone is one's light on the path of life. Satsanga is indeed superior to all other forms of religious practices like charity, austerity, pilgrimage, and the performance of religious rites. One should by every means in one's power adore and serve the holy men who have realized the truth and in whose heart the darkness of ignorance has been dispelled. They who, on the other hand, treat such holy men disrespectfully surely invite great suffering. Well, this is a tricky one for us in the West. It's not really part of our tradition to revere holy people or enlightened people. And how do we even know who's enlightened? This whole system has been so debased and allows for so much manipulation. If you can get it, it's great. But there are so many buts these days. I don't know if this is actually possible in our modern era. What often happens is you might join a group, and you might go along to some meetings. There might be an enlightened person who talks. There are many teachers of so-called Advaita who do seem to have some kind of realization, and you can go along and you can talk to them, or you might get involved in a group. You might be involved in a group which teaches meditation and has got enlightenment as its goal. But when you do this, when you go along to any group, there are certain obstacles in the way almost immediately. Any group, even the simplest group, needs some sort of infrastructure, physical infrastructure. It needs premises, which involves money. That has to be maintained. When you go along to a group, there's also a group psychodynamic in operation. Whenever you've got people, you've got a group psychodynamic. So, for example, if you go along to a group, there'll be people there who've been with that group longer than you have, and you'll be the new kid on the block, and that itself has got its own psychodynamic. So there's that as well to deal with. And then you might find by going to the group that other longings are met by going to the group. You might have a deep desire to be part of something. There might be somebody in the group that you fancy. So all this is done in the name of spiritual realization. You get involved in the group infrastructure, the group psychodynamic, your own inner needs. And you think this is all to do with getting enlightened, and the group might have its own jargon, its own talk, dealing with psychology and liberation, and you think that this is to do with liberation. It's taking you further and further away. The chances are the language of spirituality is being used to take you further away, and it's not intentional. There are so many obstacles. So satsanga is a wonderful ideal. And if you can find it, that's great. But I think in the modern Western context, or even in the modern Asian context, there are so many pitfalls that it's probably best to be avoided, or at least to be used very tentatively. Do not put your critical faculties on hold for the sake of being part of a group. Let's probably best to stick to watching videos or reading books. These four: contentment, satsanga, company of wise men, the spirit of inquiry, and self-control, are the four surest means by which they who are drowning in this ocean of samsara, repetitive history, can be saved. Contentment is the supreme gain. Satsanga is the best companion to the destination. The spirit of inquiry itself is the greatest wisdom, and so self-control is supreme happiness. If you are unable to resort to all these four, then practice one. By the diligent practice of one of these, the others will be found in you. That's a point, actually. If you get on with it, then perhaps spiritual companionship will follow. The highest wisdom will seek you of its own accord. I think everything happens when you're ready. You don't need to seek the highest wisdom, it will find you when you're ready. Until you tame the wild elephant of your mind with the help of these noble qualities, you cannot have progress towards the supreme, even if you become a god, demigod, or a tree. Therefore, O Rama, strive by all means to cultivate these noble qualities. As I said before, I think they're not so much qualities as practices. This section is about the behaviour of the seeker. But as I said, I don't think it's not quite a seeker in the sense of somebody who's looking around for something. It's the seeker who's actually managed to flick the light switch on and found something, and it's how you go from there. So I would say this is about the spiritual practitioner. It's about the behaviour or the attitude of the spiritual practitioner. And all the time the spiritual practitioner is one who is practicing self-control, inquiry, resting in contentment or finding refuge in contentment, and hopefully the company of others, perhaps others who've got there or found their way there.